You're listening to the Align and Inspire podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Minique, and in this episode, we are going to be talking about your offer. So this episode is especially going to be for you if you are an established coach. You already have your one-on-ones going, and that is going well for you, but you're starting to realize just how capped trading your time for dollars can feel. Like maybe you're thinking, I really like supporting my clients. This is working well. I'm getting new clients in, but you're really noticing just how limited it is when you're always exchanging your time for dollars, when you're always saying, okay, when I have a client, that brings in money. And you're starting to notice, you know what, I think I'm ready to do something more scalable. I'm wanting to run a group program. I'd like to do it in a bigger way. What are some best practices for me to get started? And that is what this episode is all about. We're going to be diving into your offer. And this is actually the first of a series all about your signature program. And what I've noticed is a lot of times successfully going from a one-on-one practice or a one-on-one coaching practice or some sort of mentoring, maybe you're a coach, maybe you're an online expert, maybe you're a mentor, and you want to create a group, it can feel daunting, but it's actually quite simple. There are really three things that you need. You need an offer that's magnetic. You need a program that gets repeatable results. And you need systems and structure in place to give you freedom while still having a really quality experience for your clients. Every group program needs this, but not every group program has it. And it's what I call a scalable signature program. It has these three elements. So I want to share it with you. I want to do a deep dive on each one. And so this is going to be part of a series on the Scalable Signature Program series. And we're going to dive in today on the first element, which is your offer. So the challenges that you might be facing when it comes to creating your offer, I know I've experienced these. The first is thinking like, how do I know if this is going to be profitable? How do I know that people are actually going to buy this, that this is going to work? You might be thinking, okay, I know what I do works really well with different people, but the work that I do with clients is so varied. It's so custom. How can I possibly make this work in a group? And maybe you've run a group program before, you're thinking about it, and you want to make sure that you structure it so you don't feel like you're winging it. So if that's true for you, I totally get it. And I want you to know that it is really absolutely possible for you to create an offer you love that feels aligned. Of course, it's the Align and Inspire podcast, and that people are willing to pay for. And if you are like many of my clients who already have an established one-on-one practice, I want to reassure you too to say that it is very possible for your clients to get great results and to feel that supportive community, to feel like the nurturing from you, the support from you, even in a group setting. But there are some nuances to make it happen. And that is why we are running this series. So let's talk first about your offer. Your offer. How can you make your offer work so that it is a profitable offer, that people are willing to pay for it, and that it's really clear when you go to explain it? And that kind of comes to my first challenge that I've noticed is we're going to go through three things that you need to keep in mind with your offer. And the first is how can you communicate it in a way that you know your clients will understand and will resonate with them. That can be a challenge or a fear that I've noticed clients have. It's like, well, what if people misunderstand what I'm saying? What if I can't communicate it in a way that's compelling for them? And the mistake that I've noticed behind this, there are a few, but one of the main ones is that not everyone realizes, and this might be true for you, is that your offer and your program are not the same thing. Your offer and your program are not the same thing. So I think of it as your program is the thing that gets them the result, and the offer is how you communicate it. So I think about it like the way I've always understood it is like when I go to get shampoo from the grocery store, from the drugstore, is the shampoo is the program and the packaging outside is the offer. It's not necessarily the visuals. It's not really the visuals. It's about how it's communicated. It's about saying, okay, what kind of hair do you have? This is going to help you get the result that you want. Like me, I'm always looking for products that will help me make my hair look thicker, because that's my big thing. That's what I'm always looking for in my shampoos. Or you might be looking for, I have dry hair. How do I make sure how do I get shampoo that's going to work with my dry hair? Or I have curly hair. How am I going to make sure that my shampoo works with my curly hair? So the offer is like that packaging is going to communicate to you, like, this is the right shampoo for you. That is what your offer needs to do, is it needs to communicate to your ideal person, this is the right program for you, and it's going to get you where you want to go. So keeping in mind that your offer and your program are not the same thing. And there's actually 7 elements to creating a really magnetic offer. And I wanted to share a couple of them with you here to get started. So the first is, out of the 7, okay, and we talk more about this in my program called Signature Program Design, but I want you to give you a few ideas to get started. So the first is, you need to have a clear promise. What is the result that your people are going to get? And it's going to be in their words, not in your coach words and the way that you communicate it or what you think they need. It needs to be what they want in their words. And it needs to have a clear process. And the thing that I find is, a lot of times people say, like, oh, my process is, I have a membership, or I have a course, or whatever. But to me, that's only skimming the surface of what your process should follow. So for me, if you're worried about, I'm not sure that people are really going to understand what it is that I'm doing, and I want to communicate it in a way that's compelling for them and that's going to be clear for them, it's going to be about your offer. It's going to be about having that clear promise. And it's also, what I recommend that you include are mini result milestones. Mini result milestones are the smaller results along the way that get your people to the final result. So I did this with a client, and she was a life coach, and she was like, she's super creative. She knew she could get results, but when she went to articulate it to clients, she had a hard time explaining what it was that she did and where they fit in. And part of that was because she had clients at all these different levels, right? And so we took what she was doing, we created a process with it, and she actually had different phases. She had 3 phases that people went through. So then when she had people in front of her, she could say, okay, you fit into phase 2, you fit into phase 1, etc. And she could say at the end of each phase, this is the result that you're going to get, so you can get to your final result. So she developed her mini result milestones. She said it made her offer so much more magnetic and so much easier to sell, because she felt so much more confident in what she was explaining. People understood it, and they could envision themselves getting to that final result. So if you have a fear or a concern that you're not going to be able to explain it in a way that people are going to understand, remember, you're not selling like your program, how many modules, how many sessions, whatever. You're selling, okay, this is the result you're going to get, and here's the process that we're going to follow to get you that final result, those smaller results that gets you the final result. So everything is really result oriented, getting your people to where they want to go, and really only explaining the things they need to hear, not overwhelming them with information. So that's all about your offer. You need to have the way that you package it, right? So that's the first element, is how to communicate in a way that you understand. You know that your offer and your program are not the same thing. There are 7 elements to your offer, and we're looking at your promise and your process. So those are 2 of the 7. The next thing that you might be dealing with is a mistake I've noticed and that I made myself, is not getting clear on your ideal person and trying to solve too many problems. Not getting clear on your ideal person and trying to solve too many problems. So this is really easy to do if you come from a one-on-one background, because when you're working one-on-one, you can solve multiple problems because everything is tailored to the person directly in front of you. You can make a group program tailored, and there are ways to do that. And I can explain that in another episode, but if you're trying to solve too many problems, it's going to be hard to communicate what it is that you do. And it's going to be hard to create a succinct process that people can go through. So I remember this happened to me, and I didn't really realize it until I looked back, is that so I have another program called Intentional Teaching for Teachers, and it helps teachers stop working weekends. But it was not always so succinct and clear to explain that. Before, I used to say, I'll help you simplify your planning. I'll help you cut down on your marking pile. I'll help you save 5 hours a week. I'll help you get your time back. I'll help you, like, all sorts of things. I'll help you get out of the day-to-day planning cycle, blah, blah, blah. I had all these different things, and I tried to go with like different angles, at different times. But the thing is it wasn't consistent, and I didn't have the same person coming into my program. So sometimes people would hear and they'd think like, oh, that's not quite for me. Like, I don't really care about not working weekends. I just want to get ahead of my planning. And then someone else would be like, well, I'm not really sure if that's for me because like my planning's okay, but I'm still working too long. So I don't really know if this program's for me. They didn't say that, but I could tell, right? And I looking back, I can see that was an issue. And the other thing is when I went to go create my program and my process, I was like, it wasn't a clear, first you do this, then you do this, then you do this. And I ended up having like so much different content. And so the bigger it scaled, I mean, it was fine when I had a small group in front of me and I could just give them tailored like suggestions. But the more I scale it, the more complicated that becomes because I'm speaking to multiple people. When I changed from the main two products or problems that I was solving before was planning, like lesson planning is a big thing, like how to structure your lessons and everything, how to structure your program, and also people who are working too much. And that attracted different people. People who are struggling to plan might be working too much, and that's the main problem they want to fix. But sometimes someone who's struggling to plan might be earlier on in their teaching degree or their teaching career, and they have different pain points, different challenges that they're going through versus someone who's been working 10 years, 15 years, and is still working weekends, and their husband's like, when are you going to spend time with me? This isn't a season. Like, this is getting outrageous. Or your kids are badgering you to play with them, and you feel guilty that you're always torn between work and home life. Like, that's a different problem than someone who's like, I'm stressed because I'm not ready for school tomorrow. Those are two different people. And when I didn't own the one problem, my messaging got diluted. It wasn't clear. And it was also harder to create the program. Now that I focus specifically on I'll help you stop working weekends, every time I record a lesson, every time I create something, every time I plan a session, I always know everybody has the same goal. They all want to stop working as much. They might have different reasons that they're working too much, but it all comes down to that's their end result. And it's so much easier to create specific things that are going to work for them because I know what their final result is. The same thing for signature program design. I know that my clients want to create a group program. Like, that's what they want. They've all had clients before. Some of them have had programs before, and they all want the same thing. They want the systems. They want they want the clear offer. They want the clear systems, and they want the clear structure that creates that really awesome client experience, right? So it's easy for me to create the content for it, to plan my sessions, to plan what I'm going to teach on next or what I'm going to coach on next, because we're all going in the same direction. But when I was going in multiple different directions, I felt scattered, and my program wasn't as succinct, and it wasn't as easy for me to communicate it. So what I would love for you to think about is when you think about your offer, think about who is your ideal person that is willing to pay for what it is that you do. Someone who is working way too much and is on they don't spend enough time with their family and they've been teaching for 15 years, it's more likely to pay me than someone who's been teaching for 2 years and still has student loans. You know what I mean? So who is your ideal person? And what is the one problem you're going to solve? And if you have one-on-one clients, like I did with entrepreneurs before I started working and just creating my signature program design, I had clients, I helped with systems, and I helped clients with how they were going to create a launch. And I had clients that I helped with how they were going to create their process. And I had clients who were working too much. Like I was doing done for you services. Like they were all over the map. I needed to choose the thing that I loved the most, that I felt the most, like that was the strongest expertise that I loved to do, which was helping clients create their programs and streamline them and systematize them. That's what I love to do. And I focused in on that one thing, and it got so much easier to create my programs in there. So make sure you're getting clear on your ideal person and what the main problem is that your program is going to solve. Because when you have a group, you can't have multiple problems that you're solving as easily. So that's the second thing. Have a clear ideal person and don't try to solve too many problems. Solve one major problem. And then the last mistake that I've noticed people making, myself included, and many entrepreneurs that I talk to, is that sometimes, and this is especially going to be for you if you've already run a program and you've run it for a little while, and maybe you want to streamline it, maybe you want to structure it, but the main problem you're seeing is that you're not getting the sales that you used to. You were getting sales and then it kind of dropped off and plateaued or declined. And we tend to think there's something wrong with your offer when it's actually a sales or a leads issue. So this is the last thing to consider with your offer. Is the thing I was doing is like, I would say, okay, this is my offer and it was working for a bit and then I wouldn't get the sales I want. So I'd make a new offer or I'd make a side offer. And I ended up making more and more and more and more offers. Okay. I didn't realize I was doing it at the time, but I kept changing it or offering a new offer to the same people. But like, I kind of exhausted my list after a while. And so what I want you to think about is if you do have a program and you do have an offer, make sure that you are getting in front of new people and you have a clear way to sell it. Later in this series, we're going to talk more about the actual selling of your program, but know that you need to, like, if you're always tweaking your offer and you're telling yourself, oh, my offer is not quite on, my messaging is not quite on. Is it your offer and your messaging, or is it that you're just not getting in front of new people? Is it that you don't have a way that you sell that you really feel aligned and good with? So that's the last thing to think about, is noticing if you are further along and you have been running your program for a while and it was selling and it stopped selling as well, or it's hard to fill it. Is it an offer problem or is it a leads or a sales system problem? So something to think about before we go into next week's episode, which is going to focus more on your program structure, how you're designing it, how you're making sure you're going to get those results. So let's go. I don't know about you, but when I listen to a podcast, I love it when they sum it up for me because I can remember, okay, right, I'm going to take action on this, or this is something I want to take away from this episode. So the first thing that we talked about today is communicating your offer in a way that they're going to understand. Your program is not your offer. Your offer is made up of 7 elements, and 2 of them we talked about today is having a really clear promise and having a really clear process where you can tell people, okay, these are the smaller results, the mini result milestones that end up getting you that final result. The second thing that we looked at today is getting clear on your ideal person and not trying to solve too many problems. That is going to make it way easier for you to articulate to your potential clients, this is what I do in your marketing and your messaging. And when you actually are going to fulfill when you're delivering, it's going to be way easier to create your content, plan your sessions, coach well, because you know everyone's going in the same direction. They all want to solve the same problem. So get clear on your ideal person and that one problem that you solve. And the third element that we looked at is getting clear on what the problem is. Is your offer wrong, or is it the offer that's the issue? Or is it actually maybe a leads or a selling issue? Because the problem that I see sometimes we make is that we think there's something wrong with our offer and we continue to tweak it and tweak it and tweak it, or add new offers or change new offers or start again. But it's not actually your offer. It's because you're not getting in front of more people, or it might not be a way that you don't like the way that you're selling it. So that's something to think about if you've been running your program for a little while and it's not where you want it to be, it might actually not be your offer at all. So I hope this was helpful for you. I am so excited about this series because these are the elements that I wish I had really clearly understood when I was creating my group program. So in the next episode, like I said, we're going to be talking all about how to structure your program, how to design it so that you feel really good, you're creating that quality experience, and you don't feel like you're winging it. So we're going to be talking about that in next week's episode. But before we get into that, I have a few ways that can support you right now before you have to wait for next week's episode. So the first thing is, if you want some support creating your offer, and maybe you have a one-on-one program or product right now, or one-on-one offer right now, and you want to think about how can you build in a program, like a group program, or maybe you have a smaller course and you're like, I'd like to create a group coaching program. How can that fit? I would love for you to check out the Offer Suite Builder. It is a free guide, and honestly, it is super, super clear, easy for you to follow, so you can think about where your offers fit together and how they flow together so they make them easier to sell. So I will link that up in the show notes. That's the first thing, is you can download the Offer Suite Builder, and it is a free resource. The next thing too is that in a few weeks, I'm going to be running a free training that we're going to dive deeper into all of these elements, the offer, your program, the system, selling, all that kind of stuff. And I'm going to share 5 secrets to build and optimize an online group program that really delivers every time, even as you grow it, even as you scale it. So if you're interested in that, check in the show notes and I will link that up so that you can register for that upcoming free workshop. So thank you so much for being here. I'm thrilled to have you here, and check out next week's episode. Let me know too if you found this helpful. Message me on Instagram. I always love to hear from you. LaurenMonique.business, and I will see you next week on the Align and Inspire podcast. Bye for now.